Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the council chamber and felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes upon her. The room was massive, built to impress and intimidate. Columns of living crystal rose toward a ceiling, lost in artificial clouds. Representatives from 200 species filled the curved galleries, their bodies ranging from insectoid to gaseous to forms that hurt the human eye to look at. Directly, Elena had stood here many times before. She had spoken words of friendship, offered human assistance, pledged cooperation. Today felt different. Today the air itself seemed heavier. High Counselor Metherin of the Velthi Dominion raised one of his 7 arms and the chamber fell silent. His species had led the council for 3,000 years. They were ancient, powerful, and absolutely certain of their own wisdom. The council recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of the human collective. Metherin said. His voice came through translation implants as cold and formal. You have been summoned to receive notification of resolution 7742. Elena kept her face neutral. Summoned. Not invited, not requested, summoned. Like a servant, I am here to listen, she said simply. Metherin gestured and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber. Text scrolled across it in the common galactic script, but Elena already knew what it would say. Her intelligence services had obtained a copy 3 days ago. For the continued harmony and security of galactic civilization, Metherin read, the Council has determined that certain measures must be implemented regarding human integration into the greater community. Elena listened as he outlined the resolution. Human colonies would accept council oversight, committees with full authority over local governance, human defensive technologies, particularly their faster-than-light communication systems and shield generators, would be transferred to council control for redistribution to less advanced species. Human population growth would be regulated according to council quotas. Human military forces would be reduced by 60% and placed under council command. The list went on. Each point was presented as reasonable. Each was wrapped in language about fairness and equality and galactic harmony, and each stripped away another piece of human independence. When Metherin finished, the chamber was silent. Representatives from dozens of species watched Elena with expressions ranging from curiosity to satisfaction. The Dref delegation clicked their mandibles in what passed for amusement among their kind. The Voss collective hummed with barely concealed anticipation. Elena understood what was happening. Humanity had been too successful, too helpful, too present in galactic affairs. They had made themselves valuable, and now the council wanted to own that value rather than simply benefit from it. I notice, Elena said carefully, that humanity was not consulted in the drafting of this resolution. The council does not require consultation to ensure galactic security. Metherin replied. Your species will comply as all species comply with council directives, and if we choose not to comply, a ripple of surprise moved through the galleries. Species did not question the council. Species did not use words like choose. When the council had decided, Metherin's 7 eyes narrowed. The council has many methods of ensuring compliance, but I am certain such measures will not be necessary. Humanity has always shown itself to be reasonable. Elena thought about the word reasonable. She thought about the 2 centuries since first contact, when humanity had stumbled into a galaxy already ordered and structured and controlled. She thought about how humans had adapted, contributed, sacrificed. They had died in council, peacekeeping operations. They had worked themselves to exhaustion rebuilding worlds devastated by disasters. They had shared technology and knowledge freely, while asking for nothing but friendship in return, and this was the result. The Council had watched humanity give and give, and they had concluded that humans were weak, that they could be taken. I must consult with Earth before providing a formal response. Alina said, I request time to communicate with my government. Metherin waved a dismissive arm. You have 72 standard hours. The Council is confident that humanity will recognize the wisdom of compliance. Alina bowed slightly, the minimum gesture of respect protocol demanded. Then she turned and walked from the chamber. She felt those 1,000 eyes following her, felt the weight of alien expectations pressing against her back. They were so confident, so certain that humans would bow their heads and accept whatever was demanded of them. They had no idea what was coming. Alina's ship left the Council station within the hour. She sat alone in her quarters as stars streaked past the viewport, her mind working through possibilities and preparations. Her communicator activated. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Secretary General David Chen, leader of the Human Collective. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but those eyes were sharp and alert. We received the resolution, he said. It's worse than our projections. They're not even pretending anymore, Alina replied. This is a takeover, slow and legal, wrapped in bureaucratic language, but a takeover nonetheless. Chen nodded. The Security Council has been in emergency session since the text leaked. We've been preparing for something like this for decades, but I don't think anyone truly believed it would happen. What are our options? Chen leaned back in his chair. Option 1, we comply. We surrender our independence piece by piece and become another subject species in the Council's collection. Within a century, human civilization as we know it ceases to exist. That's not an option. No, it's not. Chen's expression hardened. Option 2, we fight. We have the capability. Our military has been quietly developing technologies we've never shared with the Council, but war would cost trillions of lives, human and alien alike. It would destroy the galactic economy. It would prove everything our enemies say about human aggression. Alina waited. She knew there was a third option. There had to be. Option 3, Chen said slowly, is something we've never tried before. Something the Council won't expect, because no species has ever done it. We walk away. Chen nodded. We walk away. Not in anger, not in fear. We simply stop participating. We withdraw from Council space, close our borders, and build something new. Alina felt something shift in her chest. It was terrifying, this idea. It was also liberating. The galaxy depends on us, she said. Peacekeeping operations, disaster response, medical technology, agricultural support. If we leave, then the galaxy will have to manage without us, and maybe for the first time, they'll understand what they've been taking for granted. The ship traveled through the void of space while Alina considered the weight of this decision. She thought about the human colonies scattered across 100 worlds. She thought about the millions of humans who had built lives in council space, who had friends and families and businesses intertwined with alien civilizations. She also thought about Resolution 7742, about council committees controlling human cities, about human children growing up under quotas that told them how many of them could exist, about human ships stripped of defenses and human soldiers placed under alien command. How long do we have? She asked. The preparations have been underway for years. We can begin the withdrawal within days if we choose. The question is whether we choose. Alina remembered something her grandfather had told her when she was young. He had been a fisherman on the coast of Chile before first contact, before humanity knew there was anyone else in the stars. He had told her that the sea respected those who respected themselves. If you let the waves push you around, they would drown you. But if you stood firm, if you chose your own course, the sea would part before you. The council had mistaken human cooperation for submission. They had watched humanity help and share and sacrifice, and they had concluded that humans needed approval, that humans craved acceptance, that humans would do anything to remain part of galactic civilization. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I'll deliver our response when I return, Alina said. 72 hours, that's what they gave us. What are you going to tell them? Alina looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them was Earth, the small blue world where humanity had been born. It seemed so fragile from out here, so alone in the darkness, but it had survived ice ages and asteroids and wars and plagues. It had given rise to a species that refused to be conquered. I'm going to tell them that humanity has always valued peace, she said, that we've worked for it, sacrificed for it, bled for it, but peace is not submission. Peace is not surrender. Peace is to parties choosing to respect each other. She paused, feeling the words take shape, and when one party decides that respect is no longer necessary, when one party decides that the other exists only to serve and obey, then peace becomes a prison, and humans have never been good at staying in cages. Chen was silent for a long moment, then he smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, he looked like a man who knew exactly what needed to be done. Give them hell, Alina. The communication ended. Alina sat alone in the darkness of her quarters, watching the stars slide past. In 72 hours she would stand before the council again. She would speak words that would change the galaxy forever, and then humanity would do what it had always done. When pushed too far, they would. The 72 hours passed in silence. The council expected negotiations, pleas for reconsideration, perhaps even threats. What they received was nothing at all. Ambassador Alina Vasquez returned to the council chamber at precisely the appointed time. She walked to the center of the floor, looked up at the assembled representatives of 200 species, and spoke clearly. The human collective has considered Resolution 7742. We decline to accept its terms. High Counselor Mathurian leaned forward, his 7 eyes narrowing. You decline. Perhaps you do not understand the consequences of refusal. We understand completely, Alina said. We simply do not agree. Humanity joined the galactic community as partners, not subjects. We have contributed freely and asked only for friendship in return. Resolution 7742 treats us as a conquered people. We are not conquered, we will not pretend to be. Murmurs rippled through the galleries. Counselor Vixarian of the Dreth Empire clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement or anger. Then you choose war? Methurian asked. No, Alina said, we choose nothing so dramatic, we simply choose to leave. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a single data crystal. She placed it on the central podium and stepped back. This contains formal notice of humanity's withdrawal from all council agreements, treaties, and cooperative arrangements, effective immediately. Human personnel will begin departing from council space within 30 standard days. No human ship, citizen, or installation will remain within your borders. For a moment the chamber was completely silent, then chaos erupted. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Several species tried to access the data crystal remotely, only to find it protected by encryption beyond their ability to break. Methurian slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, but order took long minutes to restore. This is unacceptable, Methurian said when he could finally be heard. No species has ever withdrawn from the council. The economic and strategic implications alone are no longer our concern. Elena interrupted. You made your position clear, High Counselor. Humanity exists to serve council interests. Our technology, our labor, our very population growth must be controlled for your benefit. We reject that position. We will build our own future, separate from council influence. You cannot survive alone, Counselor Vixarian called out. Your species is too young, too weak. You need the council's protection. Elena smiled. It was not a warm expression. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps humanity will struggle without council guidance, but we would rather struggle as free people than prosperous servants. She turned and walked from the chamber. No one tried to stop her. The withdrawal began within hours. Across council space, human workers put down their tools and headed for transport stations. Human engineers shut down projects mid-construction, leaving half-built structures that would take other species decades to complete. Human doctors finished treating their current patients and then closed their clinics. Human teachers held final classes and said goodbye to students who didn't understand why their favorite instructors were leaving. On the border world of Calith Prime, Commander Marcus Stone received orders to withdraw. Peacekeeping battalion, they had been holding the line between two hostile species for 3 years, preventing a war that would have killed millions. Command wants confirmation. His communications officer reported full withdrawal within 48 hours. Stone looked out at the contested territory. Both sides had been behaving because human forces stood between them. Without that presence, violence would resume within days. Send confirmation, Stone said. Begin evacuation procedures, sir. If we leave, the Calith Accord collapses. The fighting will start again. I know. Stone turned to face his officer. But we didn't create this conflict. We've been holding it back for 3 years while both sides refuse to make real peace. Maybe it's time they learned to solve their own problems. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human agricultural specialists left worlds that depended on their expertise to prevent famine. Human disaster response teams packed their equipment and headed home. Human merchants canceled contracts worth trillions of credits, accepting massive Financial losses without complaint. The council watched in growing alarm. They had expected resistance they could overcome, defiance they could punish. They had not expected this quiet, methodical departure. They're actually leaving. Admiral Kavath of the Voss Collective reported to the emergency council session. Every human installation is being dismantled. Every human citizen is being recalled. They're not negotiating, not demanding concessions. They're simply going. Let them go, Councillor Vixarian said. They'll come crawling back within a cycle. Their economy cannot function without council trade. Admiral Kavath's humming vocalization indicated skepticism. With respect, Councillor, humanity has been trading with the council for the centuries. In that time, they have become essential to operations across 17 sectors. Their departure will cause significant disruption. We can manage, Mathurian said. Other species will fill the gaps they leave. Kavath did not argue. He had served alongside human forces during the Outer Rim pacification campaign. He had seen how they fought, how they thought, how they planned. He did not believe for a moment that they were leaving without a strategy, but the council did not want to hear warnings. The council wanted to believe that humanity was too weak to survive alone. 3 weeks into the withdrawal, the first crisis hit. The world of Drax VII had been suffering from a creeping blight that destroyed crops and left soil barren. Human agricultural specialists had been working to contain it, developing treatments and rehabilitation programs that would take years to complete. When those specialists left, the blight spread unchecked. Within days, half the planet's farmland was affected. Within weeks, food production collapsed entirely. The Draxian government sent urgent appeals to the council. They needed help. They needed the human specialists to return. They needed someone to save them. The council dispatched wealthy agricultural teams. They were competent scientists, skilled in their field, but they had never dealt with a blight like this one. Treatments they attempted made things worse. The rehabilitation programs they designed failed to account for Drax VII's unique soil chemistry. 2 months after the human withdrawal, Drax VII declared a planetary emergency. 3 million citizens faced starvation. Similar disasters unfolded across council space. The Drelvada's border erupted into open warfare without human peacekeepers to hold the line. A mining accident on Korath VII killed 40,000 workers because no one could coordinate a rescue as efficiently as human emergency teams. Trade routes that depended on human navigational expertise became dangerous, and shipping costs tripled. The council scrambled to respond, but they had spent so long relying on human assistance that they had forgotten how to manage crises on their own. Committees debated while people died, bureaucracies processed paperwork while worlds burned, and through it all, human space remained silent. Ships sent to investigate the borders vanished, not destroyed as far as anyone could tell. Their crews appeared weeks later at neutral stations, confused and disoriented, with no memory of what had happened to them. Probes detected nothing. Sensor scans revealed only empty space where human colonies had been. It was as if an entire civilization had simply ceased to exist. Rumors spread through the galaxy. Some claimed that humanity had destroyed itself, that their departure was the Beginning of a collective suicide. Others whispered that humans had discovered something terrible, something that forced them to hide from the rest of the universe. A few suggested that humanity was building something, preparing for something, waiting for the right moment to reveal what they had become. The truth was simpler and more frightening than any rumor. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was not hiding. Humanity was watching in a command center deep within protected space. Secretary General Chen reviewed reports from across the galaxy. He saw the crises unfold, the failures multiply, the Council's confidence slowly crumble. Drax VII is requesting humanitarian aid. His aide reported they've reached out through back channels offering significant concessions. Tell them we're sorry for their suffering, but we cannot interfere in Council affairs, sir. People are dying. Chen closed his eyes. This was the hardest part. The galaxy was suffering because humanity had withdrawn, and every instinct screamed at him to help. That was what humans did. They saw problems and they fixed them. They saw suffering and they relieved it. But the Council had to learn. They had to understand what they had taken for granted. If humanity rushed back at the first sign of trouble, the lesson would be lost. The Council created this situation, he said. Quietly, they demanded control over our people, our technology, our very existence. They wanted to own us. Now they're learning what it means to manage without us. And when they've learned, Chen opened his eyes and looked at the map of human space. 100 worlds hidden behind defenses the Council couldn't penetrate, connected by communication networks the Council couldn't tap. Then we'll see if they've truly learned or if they've only learned to hide their contempt. He turned back to the reports, watching the galaxy struggle with problems it had never had to solve alone. Let them learn. Let 6 months passed and the galaxy began to break. The Drelvani's war had claimed 1 billion lives. Both sides blamed the other, but both knew the truth. The war would never have resumed if human peacekeepers had remained. The thin line of patient, determined humans had held back centuries of hatred. Without them, that hatred had exploded into massacre. On Korath 7, the mining disaster had become a permanent crisis. The underground tunnels remained flooded, the rescue equipment inadequate, the coordination between rescue teams non-existent. Bodies would never be recovered. Families would never have closure. Draxi 7 had survived its famine barely. Council food shipments had arrived, but they were the wrong type of grain, incompatible with Draxian digestion. Millions had suffered malnutrition before the problem was identified. The agricultural blight continued to spread, and no one knew how to stop it. High Counselor Metherin presided over emergency sessions that seemed to never end. Representatives shouted at each other, blaming the species or that policy for failures that multiplied by the day. The unity the Council had maintained for millennia was cracking. We must force the humans to return, Counselor Dexarin insisted at yet another emergency gathering. Send a fleet to their borders. Demonstrate that we will not tolerate this abandonment. Admiral Cave Ephesus humming filled the chamber with a tone of weary patience. We have sent ships, they do not return. We have sent probes, they detect nothing. Whatever defenses humanity has constructed, they are beyond our ability to penetrate. Impossible, Dexarin clicked. Humans have been part of Council space for only 2 centuries. They cannot have developed technology we do not possess, and yet they have our. Analysts believe they have been preparing for this moment for decades. Perhaps longer. They anticipated that someday the council would overreach, and they built accordingly. Metharin raised one of his 7 arms, calling for silence. What do your analysts recommend? Cave was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced even Dexarin's clicking. They recommend we wait. Humanity is not attacking us. They are not making demands. They are simply existing separately. Our attempts to force contact have failed. Perhaps it is time to accept that reality, accept that a minor species has defied the council and escaped consequences. Dexarin demanded, if we allow this, others will follow. Our authority will crumble. Our authority is already crumbling, Cave replied, but not because of human defiance. It is crumbling because we cannot solve problems that humans used to solve for us. It is crumbling because we have revealed our dependence on a species we dismissed as inferior. The chamber fell into bitter silence. The truth hurt, and no one wanted to acknowledge it. Behind the walls of their protected space, humanity was not idle. Secretary General Chen stood before a gathering of human leaders from across the collective, presidents and governors, admirals and scientists, all connected through secure channels that council technology could not detect. The galaxy is watching us fail, he said. No. The galaxy is watching them fail, but they are also watching to see what we do. Next, Admiral Saro Kunquo, commander of the Human Defense Force, spoke up. Our defenses are secure. We've completed the shield network around all major colonies. Any council fleet that approaches will be detected light years out and handled accordingly. Handled how? Asked Governor Liu of the new Shanghai colony. Non-lethally for now. We intercept their ships, transport their crews to neutral space with their memories of the encounter blocked, and send the ships back empty. It makes a point without giving them bodies to rally around. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Collective Science Division, added her report. We've made significant advances in the past 6 months. Isolation has actually accelerated our research. We're not sharing resources with council projects anymore, so everything goes into our own development. Chen nodded, and they compact. There was a moment of satisfaction around the table. The human compact had been a theory for years, a contingency plan in case the council turned hostile. Now it was becoming reality. 17 species have made contact through back channels, said Elena Vasquez, who had transitioned from ambassador to chief diplomat of the new order. 12 have formally requested membership. The others are still testing the waters, afraid of council retaliation if they're caught. What kinds of species? Chen asked. The ones the council ignored, the ones too small to matter, too weak to threaten, too different to understand. The Karath are sending a formal delegation next month. The Velosa have already relocated 3 colony ships to our space. Chen smiled. This was the part of the plan that the council would never have predicted. Humanity wasn't building an empire. They were building an alternative. For millennia, the council had been the only game in the galaxy. If you wanted protection, you joined the council. If you wanted trade, you went through the council. If you wanted to exist in civilized space, You accepted counsel. Authority. Now there was another option. The Kareth arrived at the human colony of New Geneva on a ship that looked like it had been patched together from salvage. Their delegation consisted of 12 small, furry beings with 6 legs, each and eyes that took up half their faces. They had been a council species for 800 years. In that time they had been assigned the role of waste processors, their entire civilization reduced to garbage collectors for the more powerful races. They had petitioned for better treatment 307 times. Every petition had been denied. Elena Vasquez met them in the diplomatic reception hall, a modest room with comfortable chairs and natural lighting, no columns of crystal, no galleries filled with observers, just a quiet space for conversation. Welcome to the human compact, she said. We're glad you're here. The Karath leader, whose name translated roughly as she who remembers, looked around the room with her enormous eyes. It is not what we expected, she said through her translation device. What did you expect? Something like the council, grand chambers, symbols of power, reminders that we are small. Elena smiled. We don't believe in that kind of reminder. Here every species has equal voice. Every concern is heard. Every contribution is valued. These are words the council also speaks. Yes, but we mean them. Over the following days, the Karath delegation learned about the human compact. They learned about the mutual defense agreements that protected all members equally. They learned about the economic partnerships that shared resources based on need rather than power. They learned about the governance structure that gave every species a vote regardless of size or strength. They also learned about humanity. They watched human children play in parks beside alien children. They saw human doctors treating Veloci patients with the same care they gave their own kind. They observed human engineers working alongside species the council would never have considered worth consulting. Your people are strange, she who remembers told Elena on the final day of the visit. You have the power to dominate. We have seen your ships, your technology, your defenses. You could force us to serve you as the council forces us. We could. Elena agreed. We choose not to. Why? Elena thought about the question. It was one humanity had been asking itself for centuries. Why help others when you could exploit them? Why share when you could hoard? Why cooperate when you could conquer? Because we know what it feels like to be underestimated, she said. We know what it means to be dismissed as weak, as primitive, as unworthy of respect. Council looked at humanity and saw servants. We refuse to look at any species that way. She who remembers was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out with one of her small, delicate hands and touched Elena's arm. The Karath accept membership in the human compact. We will remember what you have offered us. We will remember what you have chosen to be. News of the Karath's decision spread through the galaxy's hidden networks. Other species that had suffered under council indifference began to take notice. Trickle of interest became a stream. The council watched with growing alarm as their control slipped away. They had expected humanity to struggle alone. Instead, humanity was building something new, something that threatened everything the council represented. An emergency session was called. Representatives gathered in the great chamber, but the mood was different now. Fear had replaced arrogance, uncertainty had replaced confidence. We must act. Counselor Dexerin demanded. Every species that joins the human compact weakens our position. Every day we wait makes their alternative more attractive. And what action do you propose? Metherin asked wearily. We cannot penetrate their defenses. We cannot force them to return. We cannot even prevent our own members from leaving to join them. Then we must change our approach. Admiral Cavith said quietly. We must ask ourselves a question we have never asked before. What question? Cavith looked around the chamber at the representatives of 200 species, many of whom had been forced to join the council, many of whom stayed only because they saw no alternative. We must ask why they are leaving, and we must ask if perhaps, just perhaps, they are right to go. Chamber erupted in. 1 year after the withdrawal, a single human ship emerged from the hidden depths of compact space and approached the council station. The vessel was unlike anything council sensors had recorded before. It was sleek and graceful, its hull covered in a material that seemed to shift and flow like living metal. It moved without visible propulsion, gliding through space as if the void itself were carrying it forward. Defense platforms locked on immediately, weapons charged. Fleets that had been waiting for exactly this moment began to mobilize. Human vessel, you are in violation of council space. The station commander broadcast. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. The response came in a calm, familiar voice. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the Human Compact. I carry a message for the council. I request permission to address the assembly. The commander hesitated. His orders were clear. Any human ship was to be detained and searched, but something about this vessel made him uneasy. Its confidence, its complete lack of concern about the weapons pointed at it. He contacted High Counselor Metherin directly. Let her approach. Metherin ordered, but keep weapons ready. If she makes any hostile move, destroy her. Elena's ship docked at the station. Without incident, she walked through the corridors alone, passing guards who watched her with a mixture of curiosity and fear. She looked older than when she had left. Harder. There was something in her eyes that had not been there before. The council chamber was full when she arrived. Every representative was present, even those who normally attended only by hologram. They had been waiting for this moment, dreaming of it, dreading it. Elena walked to the center of the floor and looked up at the galleries. A year ago she had stood here and announced humanity's departure. Now she returned, but not as a supplicant. High Counselor, she said, honored representatives, I bring greetings from the Human Compact. The Human Compact, Counselor Dexerin clicked mockingly, a collection of failures and misfits, humanity and whatever scraps they could gather from our trash. Elena smiled. It was not a kind expression. Let me tell you about those scraps, she said. The Kurith, who you used as waste processors for 8 centuries, have developed the most efficient recycling technology in the galaxy. They can reclaim 99% of any material for reuse. The Veloci, who you dismissed as too fragile for real work, have created medical techniques that can heal injuries your doctors consider fatal. The Thornaki, who you confined to a single system because you found their appearance disturbing, have mapped hyperspace routes that cut travel times by 40%. She paused, letting the Information sink in. Every species you overlooked had potential. Every species you dismissed had something to offer. You were too busy measuring value by military power and economic output to notice what was right in front of you. Pretty words, Metharon said, but you did not come here to lecture us about overlooked potential. What do you want? Alina reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a data crystal, placing it on the central podium just as she had done a year ago. This contains two things. First, a current membership list of the Human Compact. I think you will find the names interesting. Crystal's contents projected into the air, species names scrolled past one after another. Kurith veloci Thornaki, Murath golem, 17 species in total, representing over 100 worlds, but they names that caused gasps of shock were not the small species humanity had rescued from obscurity. They were council species, 3 of them minor members perhaps, but still species that had sworn loyalty to the council. The Prelithi Metherin breathed, the Vosk Collective, the Outer Rim Federation. They applied for membership last month, Alina said. We accepted. Their transition to compact space is already underway. This is treason, Dexarin clicked. They will be punished. Their worlds are already under compact protection, Alina interrupted. Any action against them will be considered an act of war against the entire compact. The chamber fell silent. Admiral Kavith's humming had stopped entirely. Even Metherin seemed at a loss for words. You said the crystal contained 2 things, Metherin finally said. What is the second? A message. Not a demand, not an ultimatum. Simply information you should have. Alina's voice changed, becoming softer, but somehow more powerful. The Human Compact does not seek war with the Council. We have no interest in conquering your territory or destroying your civilization. We simply wish to exist separately according to our own values and principles, but we will not tolerate aggression. We will not accept threats, and we will not abandon the species who have chosen to join us. Any attack on compact space or compact members will be met with overwhelming force. Threatening us, Dexarin demanded. Informing you. Alina looked directly at the draft counselor. Your fleet movements have been monitored. We know about the strike force assembling at Corin Station. We know about the war plans being developed by your military strategists. We know what you're planning. She paused. We also know you will fail. Our defenses are not a bluff. Our technology is not inferior. We have spent decades preparing for this moment, while you assumed we were too weak to matter. Show us, Metherin said. Suddenly, if your claims are true, demonstrate this power. Alina had expected this. She touched a control on her wrist. Throughout the council station, lights flickered, displays shifted, security systems registered access from impossible locations, and then for exactly 3 seconds every screen on the station showed the same image, a view of the council chamber from directly above, looking down at the assembled representatives. We have been watching you for the past year, Alina said as the screens returned to normal. We know your communications, your fleet positions, your military capabilities. We could have used this information to destroy you. We chose not to. She let that sink in. That is the message I bring. The Human Compact is not your enemy unless you choose to make us one. We will defend ourselves absolutely, but We have no desire to attack, we want peace, true peace between equals who respect each other's sovereignty. Admiral Cavith spoke for the first time. And if we offer such peace, what then? Then we talk, we establish borders both sides will honor, we create trade. Agreements that benefit everyone, we cooperate on problems too big for either side to solve alone. Elena spread her hands. We build something new together. Something better than the old relationship where one side dominated and the other served. This is unacceptable, Counselor Dexerin said. The Council does not negotiate with rebels and traitors. We do not recognize this compact. We will never, Counselor. Dexerin Metherin's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. You have spoken. Enough. The draft fell silent, mandibles clicking with suppressed fury. Metherin looked down at Elena with all seven of his ancient eyes for a long moment. Neither spoke. The weight of 3,000 years of council supremacy pressed against the reality of a changed galaxy. 1 year ago, Metherin said slowly, I told you that humanity would recognize the wisdom of compliance. I was wrong. Admission sent a shockwave through the chamber. High counselors did not admit error. They did not acknowledge being wrong. I underestimated your species. I assumed that your cooperation indicated weakness, that your generosity proved you could be controlled. This was a mistake that has cost us greatly. He paused. The Council will consider your message. We will debate. We will decide. But I tell you now, Ambassador Vasquez, that the old relationship is over. Whether we become enemies or partners remains to be seen, but we will never again make the mistake of thinking humanity can be owned. Elena bowed the same minimal gesture of respect she had given a year ago, but this time it felt different. This time it was offered freely rather than forced. That is all we ever wanted, High Counselor. Not dominance, not submission, just respect. She turned and walked from the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted into debate that would continue for weeks. Factions formed and dissolved, old alliances shattered, new possibilities emerged. The galaxy was changing and nothing would ever be the same. Elena's ship departed the station and slipped back into compact space. She sat alone in her quarters, watching the stars, thinking about the future. They had done it. They had walked away from an unjust peace, survived the isolation, built something new. They had proven that humanity could not be conquered, could not be controlled, could not be dismissed, but the work was just beginning. Peace would have to be negotiated, maintained, defended. The compact would have to grow and evolve. New challenges would arise. Elena smiled. Humanity had never been afraid of challenges. They had only been afraid of surrendering before the challenge was met. The council's debate lasted 3 months. Factions rose and fell. Old alliances dissolved as species that had been silent for centuries suddenly found their voices. The emergency sessions became regular sessions, and the regular sessions became shouting matches that accomplished nothing. Counselor Dexerin led the faction demanding war. His speeches filled the chamber with righteous fury. Humanity had defied the natural order. Humanity had stolen loyal species from council protection. Humanity had humiliated the greatest civilization in galactic history. Such crimes could not go unpunished. His words found eager listeners. The Dreth Empire committed their fleets. The Valorian hierarchy pledged there. Soldiers, 12 species in total, joined the war faction, representing significant military power, but Admiral Cavith led a quieter opposition. He did not give speeches, he simply presented facts. Human Compact now included 23 species. Their combined territory exceeded 40 sectors. Their defensive technology remained impenetrable to Council. Scanning, their economy, far from collapsing as predicted, was growing at rates the Council had not seen in centuries. More importantly, every attempt to infiltrate Compact space had failed. Spies disappeared, probe ships were returned empty. The one military scouting mission that attempted to breach Compact borders lost contact within seconds and was found weeks later undamaged, drifting in neutral space with its crew unconscious and its memory cores wiped. We can declare war, Cavith told the Council during a closed session. We can send our fleets, but we cannot guarantee victory. We cannot even guarantee that we will survive the attempt. Cowardice. Dexter hissed. The Voss have always been cowards. The Voss have always been practical, Cavith replied calmly. We did not build an interstellar civilization by ignoring uncomfortable truths. The truth is that humanity prepared for this war while we assumed they were too weak to fight. The truth is that we do not know what weapons they have developed, what alliances they have formed, what strategies they have planned. The truth is that starting a war with an unknown enemy is foolishness, not courage. The debate continued, but the war factions' momentum slowly drained away. Species that had pledged support began to reconsider. Military commanders who had planned glorious campaigns started calculating casualties. The glory of war looked less attractive when victory was not guaranteed. Finally, after 3 months of argument, High Counselor Metherin called for a vote. The resolution was simple: would the Council pursue military action against the human compact, or would it seek diplomatic resolution? The vote was not close. 147 species chose diplomacy, 53 chose war. The war faction had lost. Counselor Dexter stormed from the chamber, his mandibles clicking with fury. This is not over, he declared. The Dreth Empire will remember who chose weakness over strength, but his words held no power. The Council had decided peace would be pursued. The negotiations took 6 months more. Ambassador Elena Vasquez led the human delegation. She was joined by representatives from across the compact species that the Council had overlooked or exploited, now sitting as equals at the negotiating table. The Council sent Metherin himself, along with Admiral Cavith and a team of diplomats from species that had supported peaceful resolution. It was an unusual delegation, weighted toward those who genuinely wanted agreement rather than those seeking to undermine it. They met on neutral ground, a space station, the unclaimed territories between Compact and Council space. The station had been built specifically for this purpose, designed by human architects and furnished by Kareth craftspeople, symbol of what the Compact represented. The early sessions were difficult. 3,000 years of Council supremacy could not be undone easily. Metherin struggled to negotiate as an equal rather than dictate as a superior. Old habits surfaced, old assumptions poisoned discussions, but slowly, painfully, progress was made. Borders were established, trade routes were opened. Communication protocols were agreed upon. The framework of a new relationship began to take shape. Hardest negotiations concerned the species that had left the council to join the compact. Metherin demanded their return. Alina refused absolutely. For days the talk stalled on this point. Finally, Admiral Cavith proposed a solution. Let them choose, he said. Hold open referendums on each world. If the population wishes to return to the council, they may. If they wish to remain with the compact, they may. Let democracy decide. Metherin hesitated. The council had never allowed such direct participation in governance. Species were assigned their place and expected to accept it. The idea of asking them what they wanted was foreign to everything the council represented. But he looked around the negotiating table. He saw the human delegation calm and confident. He saw the compact representatives, species the council had dismissed, now speaking as equals. He saw the future taking shape, whether he approved or not. Agreed, he said. Finally, let them choose. Referendums were held across all disputed worlds. The results were overwhelming. Every species chose to remain with the compact. Not one population voted to return to council control. Metherin accepted the results with dignity. Whatever his faults, he was wise enough to recognize when history had moved beyond him. The treaty was signed on the anniversary of humanity's withdrawal, 1 year since Alina had walked from the council chamber, 1 year since the galaxy had begun to change. The document was simple. By galactic standards, it recognized the human compact as a sovereign entity. It established peaceful borders. It created frameworks for trade, cooperation, and mutual assistance. It prohibited aggression from either side. Most importantly, it acknowledged something that had never been written into galactic law before, that every species had the right to choose its own path, that membership in any civilization must be voluntary, that peace could only exist between equals. Alina signed for the compact. Metherin signed for the council. Admiral Cavith served as witness. When the ceremony was complete, Metherin approached Alina privately. 1 year ago, he said, I believed I was dealing with a minor species that had forgotten its place. I offered you submission wrapped in the language of cooperation. I expected you to accept, because I could not imagine any other response. And now, Alina asked, now I understand that I was never really seeing humanity at all. I was seeing what I expected to see, what I wanted to see: a useful servant, a cooperative subordinate. I missed what was right in front of me. What was that? Metherin's eyes studied her for a long moment. A species that measures its worth not by what it can take, but by what it chooses to give. A species that builds rather than conquers. A species that walks away from power rather than abuse it. He paused. I have lived for 600 years and led the council for 200. I have never encountered anything like humanity. Alina thought about his words. She thought about the year that had passed, the struggles and small victories. She thought about the compact they had built, the species they had welcomed, the future they were creating. We're not special, she said. Finally, we're just stubborn. When someone tells us we have no choice, we find one anyway. When someone tells us we're too weak to matter, we prove them wrong. When someone tells us to submit, we walk away and build something Better, that is exactly what makes you special, Metherin replied. Most species accept their limitations. Humanity refuses to acknowledge they exist. The celebration that night was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Humans and aliens danced together under artificial stars. Species that had been enemies shared meals and stories. The weight of 3,000 years of hierarchy lifted just a little. Alina stood at the edge of the gathering, watching her people celebrate with their new allies and their former adversaries. Secretary General Chen joined her. We did it, he said quietly. We actually did it. Did what changed the galaxy, not through war, not through conquest, just by refusing to accept what everyone told us was inevitable. Alina nodded. It's not over though. The treaty is just paper. We'll have to work to make it real. There will be setbacks, conflicts, moments when everything seems about to fall apart. I know, Chin smiled, but that's the human way, isn't it? We don't expect things to be easy. We just expect ourselves to keep trying. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebration continue. Somewhere in the crowd, a group of Kareth were teaching human children a traditional dance. Nearby, Admiral Keveth was deep in conversation with a human naval officer, comparing tactical philosophies. The galaxy was changing. Not quickly, not easily, but genuinely. The old order was giving way to something new, something that made room for species the Council had overlooked and values the Council had dismissed. Alina thought about the message she had delivered to the Council. A year ago, she had told them that humanity valued peace, but not at the cost of freedom. She had told them that humans would rather struggle as free people than prosperous servants. They had proven that promise true. They had walked away from an unjust peace and built a better one. They had shown the galaxy that strength was not measured in weapons or territory, but in the courage to choose your own path.